Life comes with a lot of decisions, and it can be hard to know the right path sometimes. A therapist can help you map out what you really want, so you trust yourself to make great choices and feel excited about the future. BetterHelp offers convenient professional online therapy on your schedule, however you want it, by phone, chat, or video call. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/positive.
So, we've got a number 1 deluxe meal. Is there anything else I can get you?
Yeah, I'd also like a good night's sleep. Maybe something like the I didn't struggle all night with my uncomfortable CPAP mask.
Sir, I think what you're looking for is Inspire. It's an implant that works inside your body to treat sleep apnea without a CPAP.
Come on! He sounds hangry. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
I'm going to Wichita.
Hey, Shocker fans, want the latest on Wichita State athletics? Let's go right to the source with Shocker AD Kevin Saal.
All right, welcome in, everybody, and joining us from Greece. That's right, Greece. Kevin Saal, Wichita State Athletic Director. You guys just landed, Kevin. Welcome into Sports Daily. Jacob Albrock, Tommy Castor here for hour number 2. Man, we appreciate it. We weren't sure if you'd be able to connect or not, but we're glad you are.
You know, we're willing to span all kinds of time zones to make this happen, Jacob and Tommy, so thanks for having us on the show.
So you guys are there. You just landed, right? And games begin, I believe, I don't know what the time difference is, but here it would be like 2 days from now. First things first, there's a lot of fires and some crazy stuff happening in Greece. Any of that near you guys or impacting anything on the trip?
No, right now, other than heat, it is warm. Today was actually in the 80s. Last week, I think the high for the week last week was 118. This week it's going to be in the low 100s, and of course it's right by the water, guys. You got all the Greek islands and everything, so the humidity is pretty firm as well. So obviously keeping the guys hydrated. But we left campus yesterday at 9 a.m. Central Time. Had a flight to Atlanta. I think we got into Atlanta about 2:30 Eastern Time, and then hopped on a 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time flight to Athens that landed this morning. Athens time, local time, at 10:35 a.m. And so it was a short night. I think most of our travel party probably got 2 or 3 hours of sleep last night on that plane. And then we got off that plane, actually had to switch carriers to an Aegean flight into Thessaloniki, from Athens to Thessaloniki. So we went through pulled the bags off, went through security again, but everything was seamless, man. Ryan Hillard and the ops staff have just absolutely crushed it. Our student athletes are having a good time, so it's been a good start to the trip. So we'll do a team dinner tonight. I'm sure everybody will sleep very, very well. And then we've got a city tour tomorrow, team meal. We get into Friday. We've got our first game at 6 p.m. local time, which would be 10 a.m. your guys' time. We're 8 hours ahead against the Thessaloniki All-Stars.
And then Monday and Wednesday of next week, you guys will take on the University of Calgary, just so everybody knows. Games aren't televised. We'll try and keep you apprised. There'll be social media videos. Kevin, I wonder on – like I travel with family and other people, and long travel especially, it's kind of like, like moving, like you can really like pick at people or get at people, and it gets a little chippy. How was this group? That's kind of an interesting way to get a feel for the group itself and how they're coming along and, the relationships. What would you say about all these new players and just sort of the vibe that you're seeing off the court from them?
Yeah, the closeness is good. The communication between the guys, they enjoy being around each other. Of course, you guys know we got 10 days of practices prior to this trip leading up to it. And so they've had some time to develop that as well. It's been really good just kind of watching them. And of course, I'm trying to pick my spots and get to know some of them that I don't know as well. And support staff is here as well. But you got to keep, other than the distance and the duration of time traveling, this is what we do in athletics, whether we're going to Tulane or we're going to Temple or you name it. We're doing buses and we're doing planes, and you got head coaches and assistant coaches and ADs are schlepping bags all over the place. This is what we do. And so it's just a joy to be able to do it in a really beautiful place. It creates some great memories for our guys.
The basketball itself on the court, I don't know how much you've been able to hang and see that or have conversations with Paul Mills, but what are you sensing from this group? And we can ask Coach Mills this more specifically later, but is there optimism with the early returns on those practice sessions? What's the feeling around the coaching room right now for this group?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a great feel, and again, I've attended a few practices, and certainly we'll spend a lot of time with these guys and our coaching staff here over the next 9 or 10 days. So it's great. It's also early, right? We'll learn a lot on this trip in terms of rotations and getting guys playing time and seeing where their best spots are, and I'll obviously leave that all up to the coaches, and Paul will be a great source of information for you there. But it's also early, right? I mean, part of the experience that makes great teams great is when you face adversity as well. And so, these games will be a test for sure, just to kind of see what we have and what looks that we like. And then as we get into the fall and practices really ramp up, you start to face some of that adversity. What do the starting lineups start looking like? And that, to me, is really the test of your culture when you start to get into your season.
All right, let's talk a little bit real quick on seeing practices. Kevin Saal, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us from Greece, which we greatly appreciate. Does it look like, from what you're seeing in practice, that this tempo is going to be elevated maybe from what Shocker fans are used to in the recent era, which has been a slower pace of basketball? I ask that because it's one of the number one questions we get from people when they talk about Mills. Oh, we're so excited that they're going to start running a little bit. Are you getting that vibe from practice, or is it still too early?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to speak for Coach Mills and the staff, and obviously they'll approach every game in a manner that they think can best beat our opponent. But if you look at the roster, it's a really mobile group. It's a group that moves well, and certainly if you look at Coach Mills's history and what he's tried to do at Oral Roberts and what they have done at Baylor, Baylor over the 14 years that he was there proved the ability to run and really move quickly, but they also proved the ability to be really efficient in half-court sets as well. So I know he'll be versatile in terms of the approach and what it takes to beat our opponents. I don't think you have to look too far back in Oral Roberts' history to understand that he likes to play fast as well. So I think there will certainly be some elements of that. How much yet is to be determined.
All right, let's switch sports a little bit. I want to ask about the campaign, the Pride on the Prairie, in just a minute, because you guys just put that out there yesterday. But before that, the videos last week come out of the Wilkins Stadium changes. It looks great. What am I looking at as far as the phase of what's changed so far? It's turf, right? There's some good-looking paint out there. But what was the change we saw the video of last week?
Yeah, so that was the installation of artificial turf in every area that was previously grass. And so the dirt infield remains the dirt infield and the batter's boxes and home plate area so that we can host NCAA regionals. That was another step in what I will say are certainly needed upgrades to that facility over the last, 16, 18 months. You've seen new batting cages, you've seen a new dugout, you've seen new lights. All of that was really initiated through a conversation that we had with our league because we shared that we wanted to be able to host the American Athletic Conference Championships. And so as we evaluated the facility 18 months ago, the thought process collectively was, well, we needed to get some batting cages. We needed to get a new dugout on the third base side that had a restroom access. We needed lights. And so we did all those things, and I really credit a lot of folks for doing that. This was really the next stage to get artificial turf in there. It solves a lot of problems for us. It's very durable, and we're really looking forward to it. It's consistent, all those things. What you didn't see there, Jacob, that does not constitute phase one of the master planning process for Wilkins Stadium. We hope to, here in the next week to 10 days, have some exciting news regarding our fundraising progress on Wilkins Stadium. But the first phase of that is inclusive of a full indoor practice facility, a full indoor infield that's connected to a team operations building.
It looks good. The video's there. Go Shockers if you want to check that out. Okay, let's talk about what is this, for people. You guys announced a big campaign, the House on the Prairie. So what's the objective here, and what's tangible for people? What do people need to know about this?
Well, I think you're going to see multiple phases from our external unit in terms of collaboration and coordination with our fans, Jacob. And it really started, you might remember us talking last year about some listening sessions that we had. We hosted 4 of those over the course of the summer last year with very different sets of demographics, where we wanted to hear the good, bad, and ugly about the game day experience, fan engagement, all of those elements. We created a list of about 150 unique pieces of feedback, and I think prior to last season, we worked our way through 75 to 80 of those. So that work still continues. And what we've learned throughout that process is we just need to maintain a really strong connection with our fan base. And so our senior associate AD over external, Scott Barnhart, our director of marketing, Connor Phelps, associate AD, Tammy Cutler, Kayla Knight, a lot of folks in our external unit have really thought through maintaining and strengthening that strong connection with our fans. So we want our fans to help define what game day looks like. And so that's what that campaign will be. It's not only a season ticket and single game and mini plan ticket sales campaign, but it's also a campaign to strengthen our game day experience for our fans.
It's the information. You can go to GoShockers.com and get it. So how is that piece of all this going for you guys? You're more than a year in now. We saw, a rowdy Coke Arena with the fanfare and festivities of the TBT and the former players coming back. Are you guys seeing tangible gains in the world of, fundraising and interest boosting, I guess, as we approach this now second full season for you in that chair?
Yeah, I think so. And certainly there are some infrastructure elements that we needed to put in place. I will share with you, very pleased that we were able to, within a matter of months, fully fund the Charles Koch Arena weight room project, about $1 million renovation there. And obviously it's been well documented. We're so appreciative of Fred Van Fleet and Steve and Regine Fellmeyer and the Jacksons and the Ayalas and the Brothertons, those families that just stepped forward and did that very quickly for us so that we could have a brand new state-of-the-art facility for volleyball, women's basketball, and men's basketball before they came back for classes this fall. We've launched a very aggressive facility master planning process. One element of that is Wilkins Stadium, and the first phase of that is $9.25 million, and we are excited soon to announce a significant chunk of that has been fundraised. There'll be more information that comes out on that. And obviously we've got Cessna Stadium going as well, which is about a $52 million project. Phases 1A and 1B total just short of $13 million. The dollars have identified and allocated to that. And so the acquiring of funds and the fundraising element has been going well. And certainly we need to continue to progress there and to deepen and strengthen the resources so that we can move quickly into phase 2 of softball and some of the thoughts that we have about ECK. And so we've got a lot of things planned and very pleased so far in terms of our progress.
It has been it's been an interesting and wild ride. Kevin Saal, Wichita State Athletic Director, joining us from Greece as the Shockers are getting ready for some exhibition games and some team bonding, I'm sure. Real quick, we got the non-conference schedule out for men's basketball before we let you go, and we knew for the most part who was on here. We still don't know Myrtle Beach opponents, but what stands out to me on it are Missouri, Kansas State, and Kansas. And how important is it for you to maintain these regional relationships with some of these teams and give the fans the opportunity for that experience at games like that do mean something, I think, to Shocker basketball and the fans that really want to see some of that and have a chance to beat their chest a little bit against maybe their neighbor or whatever it is, that the Shockers are playing these games, and it gets you that extra little added excitement.
Yeah, I think, Jacob, you just hit the nail on the head. It's important to us because it's important to our fans. The regional flavor to the non-conference schedule, the strength of that non-conference schedule is really important, not only to our fan base, which makes it important to us, but it's important for the objectives that we have for our schedule. First and foremost, is we want to consistently put forward every year a schedule that gives us an opportunity to be an at-large in the NCAA tournament. And so when you look at this year's schedule, you've got 6 neutral site games, and you'll recall the conversation we had last year about the Oklahoma State game being an Interest Bank Arena for a long time. We have coded that game as we submit our preseason schedules to the NCAA as a home game. And it actually meets the criteria for being a neutral site game, which is good for us because the example last year is if we had called that Oklahoma State game a home game last year, it would have been a quad 2 game. Because it was a neutral site, it was actually in quad 1. And so having 6 neutral site games certainly helps us in that respect. We will square up against the Jayhawks for the first time in 32 years in the regular season. I know folks are really excited about that. We've got the third of 4 contracted games with Kansas State next year, which will also be in Kansas City. The final game will be in Koch Arena in 24-25. Of course, we finish up a 2-game set with Missouri. We start a 2-game home and home with Western Kentucky. We finish a 2-game road first last year and then home this year with Richmond. We've got old Missouri Valley Conference foe, Southern Illinois. We've got a solid here the last 3 or 4 years. Norfolk State's been a solid club as well. So we feel like we've put together a really good schedule. I know there was some head scratches on the Friends game, and I think that, Jacob, that one accomplishes a couple of things for you. Number one, and you and I talked about this briefly, but number one, there is some strategy to a non-D1 game. When you talk about putting together a schedule for that will accomplish an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament, it actually, the non-D1 game against Friends doesn't count against the net formula. It's not calculated in your net scores. Whereas a game versus a 250 to 360 in the net, like a quad 4 type game, that would count in your net. And there are certainly circumstances where you're better off playing a non-counter than you are playing an institution that might be in that 250 to 350 range. So that's our league has a policy about non-D1s. I had a conversation early. We had a conversation with our league early. We felt like we had picked up enough strength in our schedule to warrant an at-large consideration, provided that we perform well, and the league was agreeable to us picking up a non-D1. It's also the first time we have played Friends in many, many, many decades. So Rob Ramsayer does a good job with that program, and looking forward to some initiatives that we're talking about surrounding that game with Friends. So all in all, really good schedule. It's very competitive, and I think it certainly gives our fans an opportunity to cheer on the Shockers in some cool spots.
Well, and just for perspective for people on Friends, one, there are certainly Friends alumni who are Shocker fans. Cool opportunity for people in the city. And two, we see KU play the D2 regionals all the time. So it's not like I'm surprised their heads. I was like, that's a cool early non-con to get, somebody in the city. It's been Newman in the past. So that's why some of that stuff happens. Kevin, be good in Greece. Just just a reminder to everybody, the Shockers will play their first exhibition over there. Pronounce it for me again, Thessaloniki?
You got it. You nailed it.
Thessaloniki All-Stars, 10 a.m. Friday. Woo! Good luck with the pronouncers over there.
It'll be good. So we've got Willie Schwanke on the road with us on our creative side video. Weston Pletcher's our new SID for men's basketball. I'll probably I'll be both of their assistants and try and shoot a little video and send them some things. So we're trying to do pregame previews, postgame recaps with some highlight packages as well. So we'll try and get as much as we can out via social media this week.
Yeah, that's the avenue, and we'll try to get to amplify some of that. So I know people want to see these guys in action, so we'll do that as well, and we'll take a look at it here as best we can on the radio as well. Of course, we'll have some of that on 12 News as well throughout these 3 games out there. Enjoy the beach, safe travels, and we'll get a full recap here in a couple weeks when you guys get back home.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Jacob. Appreciate you having us on the show, and go Shockers.
There goes Kevin Saal. We really do appreciate it greatly that he was able to connect from Greece there. Wasn't sure how that worked. Time changes, technology, and all that. And Shocker fans, it does sound like they are safely away from the fires and some of the crazy stuff that's happening out there. We're going to take a quick break. Tommy will jump back in. We'll look back at some of that. We'll look ahead. Major League Baseball trade deadline grades. What do we think? Who got the bestest? And who I've got a surprise one for you, Tommy, on who I think nailed it at the trade deadline. We'll see if you agree. That's coming up next on Sports Daily. Just a second here, Tommy. I forgot Mega Millions drawing last night. Let me make sure I didn't win $1 billion here. No.
I really hope you did. Really hope you did.
I did not. No billion for this guy. In fact, I didn't get one dang number. But, I'd rather get them all than just one. So, no worries.
If you had won, would you have
We'll get him the next time.
Would you have been willing to share a little bit with me if you had won? It's $1 billion. Like, you could, that's a lot of money, right?
After taxes
you could
and the
spare
cash
a little
out.
bit.
After taxes and the cash out, it's probably more like $250 million. But, maybe. You know what I can get you? A couple free iced tea cards to HTO.
I'm sure you could. Could.
We get your hands on those. All right, let's give some grades at the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We've also got some Chiefs audio from Travis Kelce and an interview with Mitch Holthus that you'll hear only here coming up as well in this hour. Our appreciation to Kevin Saal for jumping on from Greece. Interesting stuff there. If you have or you got into that late, you can jump in and take a listen to that on the Odyssey app, where Jad will have it available for you. Tommy, who you think did the best job at the Major League Baseball trade deadline?
I'm going to go with the Rangers. I think the Rangers probably did the best job of acquiring talent and going all in on that side. But then honestly, if you're looking at it from the perspective of who benefits the most long-term, probably the Mets. Of course, they parted with Verlander and Scherzer. They made a couple of other trades. So I think both of those teams probably, in my mind, they were the most aggressive ones. They probably did the best job too.
So I was going to say the Mets is my sort of surprise because they were sellers. I think that if the economics of baseball never slaps you in the face and why it's like frustrating to be a Royals fan. So the Mets go all in free agency, which of course only a handful of teams can do every year. Doesn't work. So the Mets basically get to pay a bunch of money to trade 40-year-olds and retool their farm system in one season, right? Like, so the Mets now have totally retooled their farm system, and they'll go into next year with the same free agent aggression. Or maybe they wait one more year, but they will become it sucks when you're a fan of a team that can't do that. And the rules are almost different that Major League Baseball teams play under. The other sports aren't like that. It's very strange. But the Mets, who have been one of the more disappointing teams in baseball, fans of the Mets had a great offseason, right? All this excitement, it didn't work out. Well, now if you're a Mets fan today, well, you can be pretty excited again because they went and got, top-end prospects as much as top-end prospects are ever traded now. Why? Because they traded big-time names, but they also ate a lot of the money. And that's why, the Astros and then the Rangers were willing to, give up what they did. Real quick on the Astros, if I'm an Astros fan, I'm excited to get Verlander. Don't get me wrong if I'm an Astros fan. But they basically traded one extra prospect for what the Rangers and the Astros trade from the Mets perspective were almost the same, right? They trade the player and eat a ton of the money for some control. But the Astros, I feel like, gave up more in the prospect end. Now, the Rangers was a little bit higher end of prospect, but the Astros gave up 2 of them. So it was really interesting to see that. I think that, when you mentioned the Rangers, and I agree, by the way, it's because they also added Jordan Montgomery, and they also jumped the gun and added Aroldis Chapman. So they basically got 2 starters. You would imagine if the Rangers reach the postseason that those will be 2 of their top 4 starters in the postseason. That's significant. They also got 2 bullpen arms, and they'll get Jacob deGrom back next year, by the way. So they're looking good at the deadline, certainly. The Angels are the real wild card, aren't they? Like the Angels, you'd like to call winners at the trade deadline, but if they don't keep Ohtani and they don't make the postseason, were they really winners at the trade deadline, or did they make a horrible decision?
Yeah, the jury's still out on how that's all going to end this season, but right now, I'm not convinced that the moves that they made are going to get them over the hump to make it to the playoffs. That's a really, really difficult division with the Rangers and the Astros, and
the Mariners.
And the Mariners, I know they're going all in. They're pushing all their chips to the middle of the table. They got C.J. Cron. They got Randall Grichuk. They acquired Mike Moustakas is there. I just Giolito. I just don't know if that's the right move to make. And I understand the thought process. Take Ohtani off the market, go all in, try to make the playoffs, increase your chances of re-signing him. But that's a lot of ifs. And you knew going into the trade deadline that if you traded away Shohei Ohtani, the Angels were going to get just an absolute bounty in return for him, like a bountiful return of multiple prospects, unlike we've ever seen before, to set them up long term. So if this doesn't work out in the short term and they're mortgaging their future for this, and Ohtani doesn't come back and they don't make the playoffs, they're clearly the biggest losers in all of this.
Well, here's why I won't agree with that completely, because I do think, based on what Ohtani has said, that he was pleased to see them do this. So at minimum, it probably increased their chances to some degree of getting him to stay there in the offseason. That in and of itself, even if they do it, may have been worth the risk. Honestly, he's that kind of player. So that's interesting. All right, let's get a quick call here on the trade deadline. Mike on the line. Jumps on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Mike, welcome in. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Hey, it's cool to be on the air. Do you guys think that the MLB trade deadline being scheduled for yesterday was scheduled too early or maybe too late in the 2023 MLB season? And do you guys think that there should be a trade deadline each season at all? Should teams be able to be able to trade players for the whole season? Thanks, guys.
The trade deadline's right where it usually is. It's weird that it comes on an election day again, but I don't have a problem with August 1st. I do think that they could push it probably 2 more weeks, Tommy, because or at least consider it now with the extra wild card. It does I heard Chris Young, the Rangers general manager, on their broadcast sort of yesterday, just like as like a postmortem almost. And he said one of the real challenges is teams don't know if they're buyers or sellers. And so with this extra wild card, it almost lets people, it almost lets hope linger, and it would be easier, I think, to be a seller if more teams knew they were buyers or sellers, right? So in 2 weeks, like the Padres are a good example of this. So the Padres were, by all accounts, strongly considering being sellers. And then they sweep the Rangers right out of the break, and now all of a sudden they don't, right? Maybe in 1 or 2 more weeks, they're able to more clearly decide which side of that they're on. So I do think you could think about it. I don't know the intricacies of why it's this time of year. I don't know. I do think there needs to be one because it protects to some degree the integrity of the game and makes, I do think there needs to be a trade deadline for sure. But I would be okay if they considered pushing it a week or two now with the extra wild card, keeping more teams in the mix and making it harder to decide if you're a buyer or seller. I'd be on board with that.
I'm okay where it is right now. I mean, it's a matter of tradition. I get you've added an extra wild card spot. I like it being right at the end of July. It gives you something to look forward to in the short term after the All-Star break. You get done with the All-Star game, and then it's like full speed ahead, a couple of more weeks
competing with
until the trade
if
deadline.
you waited. It's a good point.
Yeah, and it's a longer time after the All-Star break to sit and ponder what's going to happen. And I don't know about you, and I'm not advocating for it to be sooner by any means, but the last week or so, I'm like, let's go. Like, we're hearing speculation a lot.
Yeah. But that's why.
I'm
that's
ready
what I
for
mean.
it.
The
I'm
extra
ready for it. Let's
wild
go.
card. The extra wild card is why you don't get movement until the very end, because teams can't decide if they're buyers or sellers. So one of the
I kind of like that though, honestly, because it's sort of a coin flip for some teams, and then you can look at it post-mortem and be like, oh, that was a good decision, or that was a really bad one.
It's so Chris Young brought that up yesterday. He was like, they asked him about the Aroldis Chapman deal, making it so early, and he's like, guys, you have to, like, when you look at this stuff, and Chris Young, by the way, is the same Chris Young that pitched for the Royals in those World Series runs. Fantastic dude. One of my favorite people in that locker room was Chris Young, by the way. Just insightful all the time, generous with his time, very nice, respectable. Really appreciated him as a player and now as a general manager too. But something that he brought up was on the Aroldis Chapman deal. He was like, you gotta understand how much credit we need to give like our players and coaches for being in a position that early that made us feel like we could do a move like that early. And what he means there, and we don't ever think about this, I don't think, as fans, like, we're always like, well, why wouldn't you go get somebody if you're going to trade for them so that you get more time with them? Well, the answer to that is, what if you do that and things go sideways and you're not going to make the playoffs? You shouldn't have made that trade in the first place then, right? So, and I'm guilty of this. I'm like, God, why wouldn't you go trade for, XYZ player a long time ago? And that's the answer, because there is risk in doing that, and that you may not be good enough to make the postseason, and now you've traded essentially for nothing. So that's an interesting part of it, too, as far as waiting until the last minute to make a trade. Sort of cuts both ways, right? You got to have teams that are sellers decide they're going to be sellers, but you got to have teams that are buyers be confident enough that they're going to be good enough to make the postseason.
And that was the root of the drama and intrigue yesterday. It's changed a little bit. I remember it wasn't that long ago, and it was before the extra wildcard spot came into play. When the trade deadline, I mean, you knew that more than likely there were going to be multiple big-time players being moved. And now it's less about that, and you still had a handful, Scherzer, Verlander. You had a handful of big-name players move, but really no superstars move. Like, even outside of Ohtani, it wasn't like there were really any other major, like, earth-shattering shakeups in Major League Baseball this season. So the drama shifts more from who is going to be traded to will teams make moves, and if they do, what are they going to do? So I like that a lot. I like the way that has kind of shifted, because it does provide the intrigue all the way up to the deadline. Before, you had to, like, cross your fingers and, like, if there was a superstar, like, will he or won't he be traded, like that. And then once they were, then it was like, okay, well, that part's done. This, like, up until the very bitter end, teams are deciding if they're going for it or not. And I think that the timing of that is perfect.
Yeah, I'm okay. I think I could be on board with waiting one more week, but you do get closer to football and run the risk of not having as much attention on it for your sport too. But an interesting question there from Mike. We appreciate the call. IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. Let's take a break so we've got time to get through this Travis Kelce audio from Chiefs camp yesterday. We'll check in on Chiefs camp a little bit here as we make our way through this. What day is it? Wednesday, midweek edition of Sports Daily. It's all Brockton Caster, Jad Chambers producing. We'll come right back. Congratulations to all our giveaway winners. You know what? Let's give away some WinSurge vouchers right now. We'll do it. First caller to 869-1240 on that IHOP hotline will get a 4-pack of WinSurge vouchers. Game of your choice. choices are dwindling here as we make our way down the home stretch of the minor league baseball season. But you can go courtesy of us here at Sports Daily and KFH. We'll get that winner. We'll come back. Chiefs Camp next on Sports Daily.
.97.5 and 1240 KFH.
It's time to get back to the sports talk.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
All right, welcome back in. Sports Daily, everybody, right here on KFH. Congratulations to Mark for winning our HTO giveaway today, and Brian for winning our Win Surge tickets. You'll have chances to win every day here on Sports Daily. Glad to be able to do that for you here. Stay cool out there, everybody. Let's talk a little NFL news, Tommy. We'll bounce around a little bit. The most significant, I think, injury update yesterday came last night. Cooper Kupp. Walked off the field, something with his hamstring. It's being reported today. Adam Schefter, I believe, has it, and probably others by now, that it looks like the Rams are going to be okay here, and Cooper Kupp should be ready and just fine.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, obviously, he exited last season with an injury, and coming off of that, he is getting older. He's been incredibly effective during his time with Los Angeles, but I mean, that had it been something significant, that would have been a major, major blow, not only for the Rams, but also probably his future career.
So Cooper Kupp before last year, by the way, he's been relatively durable in the NFL. He's missed games. Most wide receivers do, but it's not like he's got a long career history of these things. So we'll see. We'll see what he can do. He's certainly everything to the Rams right now, maybe the most important player on that team. All right, let's jump back over to Chiefs camp then, Tommy. And we mentioned earlier that, Wharton is there now off the PUP list, and I'm sure there's some posturing to that with Chris Jones. Again, back to what I've said now for a while, I don't think that we can just write this in at Penn that this deal's going to get done. It seems weird to me that it's still not. I think it's going to, but we just need to consider, what ifs here if this thing gets really ugly and messy. As we're 2 weeks into training camp now, and we still don't have Chris Jones on the field.
I think it might be part posturing, but I also think it might be part the Chiefs are kind of desperate, with interior linemen on the defense, right? So I think it can kind of be both at the same time. They can show, Tershawn Wharton coming onto the field, wearing pads, saying they're going to activate him from the PUP list, and that might send a message. But then it's also, hey, we really, really need some help, at that position as a defensive lineman. So there were questions about whether or not Wharton would be ready to go for week one, or even missing a handful of weeks into the regular season. Obviously, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're still not comfortable with Tershawn Wharton taking over for Chris Jones, but you're probably you feel a little bit better about him than you do the other guys that they have on the roster.
Every day that this goes on, I get just a little bit more uncomfortable with this. The fact that it's not done still, that we thought it would be done a long time ago, all these things. It all does make me just a little bit uncomfortable. All right. Mitch Holthus is providing us, and the Chiefs are providing us over on Steve and Ted, some exclusive audio every day of his sit-down conversations with various people in the organization. Travis Kelce is who Mitch chatted with recently. Jad's got us a cut of that conversation. Kelsey's been interesting at camp this year. A little feisty in his old age, perhaps. It's hot. I get it. But let's listen into some of that conversation Mitch Holthus had with Travis Kelce.
It's go time. We know. The past is the past at this point. We got our eyes set on this year, and it's exciting. It's exciting, when you go out and you get one. There's a lot of energy just to be around the guys again. And with that being said, I think Coach Reed and the front office, everybody that's been involved with this organization over the past couple of years has kind of set the tone on, the work ethic that we show, and from day one. And day one's already started, so we're on the grind to get this thing again.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty standard stuff, right? they're trying to repeat. They're trying to, continue this absurd expectation that they've set for themselves. And, Tommy, I think that's fair, right? What do you do? Like, how do you stay motivated in these times? And I think it's on your individuals leading the way to do that. Tom Brady always did it for New England, right? And you hear former players talk about that, and nobody wanted to let him down and all these things. Mahomes, I think, has that same quality where the Chiefs are lucky is they have it in Mahomes. They have it in Travis Kelce. They have it in Andy Reid. And every coach has it. They have it in Chris Jones if he's going to be there. But they've got several of these veterans that have been there a long time now where it's just this expectation. And I don't think there's any player that's been a part of this that you would have to worry about any sort of apathy setting in.
Well, it's really easy to say that, we want to repeat and we, last year is last year and we're on to this one. Like, that's really easy to say, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to do. It just comes down to whether or not these players continue to have the appetite, to go out and put in the work to make it happen. I think they do. That's what Andy Reid expects. That's why this team has been so good over the last half of a decade and, continuing on even before Patrick Mahomes. So they've got it. It's built into them. That's the culture. We've always heard about, quote, the Patriot way, right? And that was how that entire dynasty was built. There's something to be said for what has been built in Kansas City. And when I hear those guys talk, like I said, it's easy to hear those words, but I don't think it's lip service. I mean, I think that they are absolutely dedicated to the craft of going in and repeating again, and knowing that it's so difficult to repeat as NFL champions. It hasn't been done since the Patriots 20 years ago. So, I mean, that's motivation, I think, on its own.
Well, and even as good as they've been lately, they've got 2 Super Bowls, right? What are we looking at now? Is it a 5-year window here?
4-year span, yeah.
Yeah. So it is. I mean, the best team that's clearly the best team, and I think people are more willing to admit that now maybe than they had been, I don't know, last year coming into this point. You're just probably not going to find anybody that wouldn't power rank the Chiefs 1, right? Whether or not they win it. Maybe the Eagles, who the Chiefs narrowly defeated in the Super Bowl last year, who got significantly better, I think, this offseason. It's an interesting place to be. There are so many things that go into it. There are so many business decisions that have to be made that are really difficult to make, a la Tyreek Hill, a la Chris Jones at this point, a la Tyrann Mathieu. Just example after example after example, Orlando Brown. It's just over and over and over again we see this, except with the guy you just heard from, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes, who are perfectly willing, it seems like, to just sort of be there and enjoy this ride and, be Andy Reid's fountain of youth to some degree. So Chiefs camp, nothing else really standing out, I don't think, at this point from Chiefs camp. That news a little bit trickling in here and there, but of course we're all just waiting on the big one. We're all just waiting on Chris Jones. There's nothing, there's nothing else really to care about other than making sure people aren't injured, right? Have you seen any, real quick before we take this last break, have you seen any of the videos of Deuce Vaughn, Tommy, at Cowboys camp?
Yeah, I have. And of course the news, what was it, earlier this week, that Ronald Jones suspended for a couple of games, right?
Yeah,
so
that was, he says it's
now,
for heart medicine. That's weird. I'm not going to really.
Yeah. Well, but regardless, he's been suspended. So the depth chart right now is Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn. So I think that there's an opportunity here for Deuce Vaughn to come in and start the season and actually get some meaningful snaps.
I still think there's a chance they re-sign Zeke Elliott, by the way. So anyway, the Deuce Vaughn, if you find the videos, though, looks like he looks short at K-State, right? It is an interesting thing to see him next to NFL players. And I don't know what that's going to look like in a game, but I cannot wait for it.
The Cowboys have talked about how that actually can be a benefit because the defense can't see him. He's hiding behind the lineman. So, I mean, I do think that's going to be fun to see how they disguise him and make him successful.
I think they're going to use him. I don't look. Deuce Vaughn's never going to line up and carry it 20 times in the NFL, But I absolutely think they're going to use him. And I'd have to go back and look at Mike McCarthy's career to know, like, has he ever really utilized a gadget player? I can't remember one. I mean, Randall Cobb, I suppose, to some degree was gadget, but he was a big-time receiver at one point, too, don't forget. So,
Didn't they kind of use Miles Austin
unique
in that way a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah,
Kinda.
maybe. Deuce is unique. And I think that what we've thought all along is that it's not a detriment, but a skill set that'll keep him in the league is going to play through. People covering Cowboys camp have loved him. 869-1240, IHOP hotline. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. Tell you what's on tap the rest of the day.
Join Mark Patrick.